long story short, I developed some little tendencies, some movement tendencies that meant that things got beat up. Maybe I didn't have enough variation in my program, things like that. But ended up, developing some little issues over time, which really held back my squat for the last few years. And really, so I was only squatting one kind of like heavy day for squats, and then one kind of, I would call like a control day, so like a pause or a controlled tempo day, light day, and that got me a long way. That got me to about 350 kilo squat, and then I got stuck there for a few years. So if you go back through my competition history on like open powerlifting, you'll see that I was stuck at like 350, 355, up around there, for a few years in terms of competition results. That's not to say there was progress happening in the background, because all my RMs were going up, my 3, my 5, my 8 RMs were all going up, my strength in variations were going up, all that stuff. So I personally knew there were a lot of progress, but if you just look at those results, not much happening at that 1 RM. And it's because, like I said, I developed some tendencies that were beating me up, beating my hips up, beating my hip flexors, glutes, developing a little bit of a shift, my back, a lot of things. And then during that record breakers prep, where I finally figured things out to some degree, it was literally taking nearly all the volume away, because like I knew my strength was right up there. I knew I had the strength to do it. I just had to hit it, and only squatting for a few sets a week, just once a week, which was kind of intimidating, because I'm like, fuck, how the fuck am I going to make progress doing this? And you could argue I didn't make progress. I just was able to express that squat strength better. But when we got to comp, there wasn't so much like one step forward, one step back during a prep. You know, you're like good week, good session, bad session type thing. And when and that was enough volume to keep things under control for that prep anyway. And so I was able to express that strength at comp and end up hitting that 385, which is nice. And then ever since we've been figuring out strategies to get ahead. I'm not under the illusion that, you know, doing 3 sets of squats a week is going to be the way forward. Need to periodize in a smart manner that allows me to get more volume, more work, more whatever to drive the squat forward when it's needed, and then obviously maybe go back to that strategy for a comp. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Things are always changing. That's the fun thing about this powerlifting business, is that as your body changes, as you get bigger, smaller, more advanced, better, whatever, your life changes, things like that, you have to change things. It's a bit of a puzzle. So that took my squat up. And now, but to get you back to where I started on this rant, I am now back, obviously ridiculously far away from comp. I don't know when the next comp is. Looking maybe 6 months if 4 years does go as planned. And with all that time, squatting currently 3 times a week, with one of them being a low bar. It's a transformer bar, but it's in a low bar position. Heavy, I think it's 5-6 reps. Still keeping it 2-3 reps and failure for those in a ramping fashion. One of them being like a front squat, what the fitness industry right now is calling a squatty squat, which is a more vertical displacement of the hips, the spine, and all that stuff, stacked position squat. Which means much less weight on the bar, but it means much less stress on the things I want to stress and much less stress on the things I don't want to stress. And that's a higher 8 to 10 rep kind of day. And then the third day being a controlled higher rep goblet squat to again drive those biomechanics that are going to have a positive influence on my movement. And also you can still get decent quad hypertrophy if you're doing what I said before and stressing the things that you want to stress, in this case the quads, the abs, things like that, and not hinging back and getting a typical like powerlifting squat where it's where you're kind of bringing everything into the party, which obviously has massive pros for squatting the 1RM, but when it comes to the side effects of it, you're beating everything up, stressing everything up, and it causes issues to some degree. Already a couple of questions, so I'll jump on them before I get into what else I was going to talk about. Just talking about myself there, so it's exciting. Preferred frequency in squat, like I just said, it's changed. Used to be 1 a week with a 2 a week, one being heavy, one being like a control, like a pause squat, like an eccentric, slow eccentric squat, like all that crap. And that got me a long way. It's still probably the most viable method for most people. Most of my guys squat 2-3 times a week. During my record breakers prep, like I said, we're trying to avoid, there was so much other stress in the system from traveling and doing all that crap. Pulled it back to literally one session, 3-4 sets. And that was more of a trying to express the strength, obviously, for a comp, not so much build the strength. And then currently I'm doing three squatting sessions a week. One being, last night I did 4 tens, 8 to 10, whatever. One of the other days is 4 6s, and then the third one is 3. I think again like 8 to 10 kind of area, maybe a little bit more. But with the overall goal at the moment being like general hypertrophy and increasing movement options and that kind of stuff. Things that are a longer term strategy. Don't need to be strong right now in a 1RM, that's for sure. Got a question about the deadlift sneaking in this squat talk, that's all right. What do you ask to young teens saying rounded back is a technique? Funny because on that deadlift chat that I did, I said rounded back could be an advanced kind of strategy for lifting more weight. When you get good and when you can brace and be stable in that position. Certainly not a bad thing to have thoracic flexion. It's something that a lot of powerlifters lack and probably need more of. In general, that is, not during your deadlift. But yeah, absolutely, I try. I try my best to get a little bit of thoracic flexion in my deadlifts. Not too good at that. I'm pretty extended as it is through the thoracic spine, which is something I'm constantly working on to keep available throughout the year. Yeah, it's to someone like a teen, somebody, I guess, a novice, somebody who's newer to lifting. I wouldn't be encouraging them to do like a round back deadlift. It's not like I'm going to be teaching that and going like, hey, everyone just like, this is the way you do it. Like fucking round your back hard. Not what I'm saying. I would still cue them to try and keep a quote unquote neutral spine in a way. And teach them to build tension in the bottom, like all that stuff that I went about on that deadlift chat. I'm going to come back to that deadlift chat, by the way, because it obviously saved as a 24-hour story, and now that I'm saving them as IGTVs, I'm going to go back, do it again, because I really like that chat. Got some good questions, got some good outcomes, got some good value to people, so I'm going to go back, do that again, so I can save it. Yes, I wouldn't teach it. I guess that's my answer there. I wouldn't teach it in a way. It's just that with more advanced people that are already strong, already know how to do the basics, know how to build tension, all that stuff, encourage a little bit more of this, a little bit more long arms, all that good stuff to perhaps add to their top end weight they're doing if they're competing. Johnny Wee-Weener, good name. Specific exercises or training to overcome sticking point halfway up. Thanks. Just know with sticking points that there's going to be multiple reasons, multiple factors that come into this sticking point being a thing. It could be, some people will tie it down to, we need this particular muscle to be stronger. We need to isolate that muscle. We do more leg extensions, whatever it is. Other people will say it's not that, it's this. It's not that, it's this. There's multiple reasons. You'll probably never know exactly why. So I guess if I was to say my most common things I see, it's just losing position. I would say that's the most common reason why people get stuck halfway, because when they go down, they should be somewhat vertically displaced through it, move down, and then they kick back out of the bottom, and then it tips them forward and ends up like a good morning, and then that's why they struggle there, or they start rounding over as they come up. They don't have that upper back tightness, or general tightness. I don't want to say that tightness is limited to one spot, but it's all tied together, so they lose that tightness, they lose that tension, they tip forward, or they start to break down. As soon as you tip forward, your knees come in. It's a cascade of events. Anyway, I would say technique, number one, get that fixed, and it's get that improved anyway. And that's going to be your number one. Number two would be adding like a pause or an isometric. Now, would I pause halfway up? Maybe, rarely though, because halfway up I find tends to be a consequence of losing position out of the bottom. So I tend to add the pause at the bottom and then work on holding like the same chest angle, or the same back angle, or the same brace, or the same knee position, whatever, hip position, blah, 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 as I ascend, as I teach somebody to ascend. So usually the pause is at the bottom. You get good at holding that position and throughout, and I'll use regressions. So I might use like a high bar squat, or a front squat, or a safety bar squat, or a Zercher squat, or a goblet squat, whatever they can do correctly and maintain position with. I'll get them to hammer that, put a lot of workload, a lot of volume through that position, and just get them used to holding that position. Obviously, like if you're doing that in a low bar squat, and then I give you a few cues to try and overcome that, and all of a sudden, and it's just not working, like you're just not getting it, you're just like, you focus on one thing and something else goes, and like you're just like confused, and it's like doing your head in. Pick a squat variation that's easier. Pick something that you can be more successful in without having to think as much. So something like a front squat or a safety bar squat, or something anterior loaded is going to stop you from like that big chest up, anterior tilted, whatever position that's gonna cause a lot of issues throughout the body, a lot of position changes, and do that, hammer that. And then once you get that, you've got that sensory awareness of what that feels like, you're using the right muscles, things aren't as angry or stuff. Then we progress to the main lift. Unfortunately, powerlifting, obviously, if you're close to a comp, you're gonna have to do the main lifts. You're gonna have to do the heavy low bar squats and whatnot. And that's the nature of the sport. But if the comp wasn't coming up, I'd be progressing it to the variation which you can do, hammering work through that, and hopefully that'll carry over to your main lift in some way, whether it's like just an awareness thing, or whether it's a muscular thing, whatever, probably all of it. And lastly, on that, sticking points, you're always going to have a slow point in the lift. Like, don't think you're just going to just going to blast it out of the bottom and just going to continue blasting it through the middle, and then at the top you're just going to keep slamming it, and it's going to bounce off your shoulders, Eric Leibridge style, whatever, on a 1 RM. It's not going to happen. You're going to have a slow point. You're going to have a point where, whether it's just like joint mechanics and things getting lengthened and shortened, and there's going to be a point where things are leveraged a little bit worse, and it's going to slow down, and you're going to have that point, and that's normal. That's part of the lift. That's even if you had quote unquote perfect technique, as you're going to have a slow down point. So I mean, if that's a normal position, you can't see any other breakdown in technique, can't see any other reasons why. Maybe that is just your natural point, and just keep training and get stronger at the whole squat, let alone like trying to hammer on that one sticking point. Would be my advice. If what I've just said hasn't cleared up any issues or given you any ideas, maybe send me through a video of a squat of this happening, and then on the Friday Q&A that I do each week, I can, if I think there's some value in how I would address it, that everybody else could benefit from to some degree, if you give me permission, you send it through to me, I'll critique it for you the best I can, give you some advice the best I can, and hopefully other people can benefit from it as well. I'll post it up on that Friday Q&A. Yeah, you said that. Thanks, but you know, I don't use this technique to lift my weight. Yeah, I try. In my deadlift, trust me, you'll see my setup. I'm reaching. I'm exhaling, I'm trying to draw this in back, I'm trying to reach, and trust me, I'm always trying to get a little bit more thoracic flexion in because I know that one of the things that lets me down in my deadlift is when I set up, at least in the past anyway, one of the things I've had trouble with is coming into my setup and then going and cranking up, and then I like my tensioning technique to the bar would be to crank up into spinal extension, and then with that, you know, and then try and push through the floor and do all the good things from it. But I was already kind of in a bad position in my setup, and that's led to me having no having some movement limitations and stuff like that. That's definitely not how I teach it these days. And I'm not, people look at my deadlift and say, oh, he has a flat back, it's like the best thing ever or whatever, but I'm not the best deadlifter ever. If you look at, I don't know, if you name the best deadlifters, I don't know, like Yuri, Jamal, all these guys, they have some flexion. They have some flexion in the system. I would still call it like neutral or whatever, and they don't lose that position. They tension through that position really well. They hold it really well, and they're strong as fuck. So I mean, like, don't think that me having like a perfectly, straight back is the glory that we should all be aiming for. Everybody's different. More deadlift questions. This is squats, guys. Like, whatever. I know squats are way less exciting than deadlifts, but one deadlift session per week at the moment. Yes. Kinda. One deadlift session in terms of deadlifting from the floor. So at the moment, it's just those sumo deadlifts. I will start hammering some conventional deadlifts and sumo deadlifts on the same day soon, probably. As far as if I included hinges in that, I'm doing some staggered stance, like B stance, RDLs on a different day. And I think there's another hinge on another day as well. So there's hinges on 2 other days, and then there's a deadlift day itself. So if you want to count them, maybe. But as far as like deadlifting from the floor, just the one heavy session or whatever. What you go to, food or drink during long, heavy squat sessions. I don't usually eat during training. I'll eat before. I don't really have a trouble like digesting big meals as I go through training and stuff. I'm a pretty relaxed lifter during training. If I do, and as I had in the past, when I've had to push my weight up and I'm really trying to push in calories, I'll drink like 50 to 100 grams of dextrose mixed with some sort of flavoring, usually like a BCAA, just because it's easy, but like a diet right, like cordial or something as well. Throughout a training, just for, but I wouldn't say, you could argue it's beneficial towards the training session for sure. But for me, my thought process is just on the calories and growing and getting big. It's just an easy way to get calories in. One of the main things you've done to improve your squat. It's probably a good time to chat through what I was going to say. So I talked a little bit earlier on frequency and how that's helped me to overcome my competition 1RMs and stuff. Like I also said though, maybe reducing the volume in such a way was allowing me to express that strength better at comp, but maybe not build it. It's hard to argue that doing 3 sets a week was the trick, the secret to making my squat go up. I feel like the strength was already there, and that was just allowed me to present it better on the platform. As far as how I'm improving these days, you're going to need to, no matter which lift you do, you're going to need to get more work in some way. The thing that was limiting my workload, my ability to do more sets or to do more reps or to do more total work, was that little hip shift that was going on, that's still going on to some degree, but much less these days. And I feel like the variations that I'm implementing during the week and help that a lot. So for me, being really biased towards that wide arch, the really big extended posture, for me being able to improve something simple like my toe touch and stuff like that, has helped a lot to open up movement options in an off season, to open up movement options in a session if I'm doing it as a warm up. That warm up video is coming. Didn't get it last week just because we had problems with filming and editing. Hopefully up today on YouTube for my particular warm up. Quick sidetrack. But as far as, like I said, I'm squatting 3 times a week at the moment. There is a low bar, there's a heavy session, there's a more front squat, anterior loaded, more squatty squat as the industry is calling it at the moment, which is just literally a squatty squat. Staying upright is just driving inhalation mechanics. So using a heel lift to drive plantar flexion, which is inhalation based, a little bit of tuck. Let's get my hips under so I don't go into anterior tilt. Ribs down, just trying to stay in that vertical, really vertical in my squat. And that allows me to load the quads, load the load those muscles in a way that it's I'm not loading my hips, or not having horizontal hingy squats in that as well, and that doesn't beat me up near as much. Sure, I can't use near as much weight, and a 180, 200 kilo squat on Instagram is nowhere near as impressive, and it doesn't impress people, but it doesn't beat me up as near as much. I squatted for 4 sets of 8, I think, last night. Pretty pain-free today, a little bit of an angry hip, but not too much. I'll definitely be able to squat in 2 days from now. So that was 4 sets, and that total workload over the week is going to allow me to apply progressive overload, allow me to not beat up the other structures and recover better, and keep driving forward. So I think that working out variations that allow me to move forward is the way that I'm going to need to go. So yes, that is one of the many things I've done to improve my squat, is just using variations which don't beat me up, which has allowed me to get more squat volume in total. I think people can overdo that and go too far on the variation side, never load and then never go hard. You need to know when to go hard, go powerlifting hard, push it, go heavy, hit some big numbers. And then on other days, have different intents, increase movement options, drive hypertrophy, not beat up the rest of the system so much. And just having a better mindset towards that, knowing what my goal is exactly for that session, has allowed me to drive things forward with the help of my coaches and whatnot. Other things that have helped improve it, just little technique fixes, little technique tweaks that are more specific to me, so I don't have to go hard on them. Obviously, I'm always looking to increase muscle, so every year, so far for the last 5 years, I have a DEXA at the same exact point every year. A week out from comp, a week out from pro raw. And I've managed to put on 2, 3, 4 kilos of LBM each year so far. So obviously I can't accredit all my stuff to all this other technique-y stuff and changing this and that. It's, I'm putting on muscle each year, and I think that's really important to know as well, and for people to chase. So keep doing that if you're not. Favorite exercise to build quad strength? Squats. Variations of squats. Either leg pressing, belt squats, hack squats, pendulum squats, whatever one of those beats you up the less and allows you to put the most tension through your quads and not piss off the rest of your body, and allow you to get a lot of workload through them and not have angry tendons, ligaments, joints the next day, the next week. Do that, progressively overload that. During my last prep last year, I did a lot of leg extensions just to bring up my quads in particular, isolated. Can I say for sure that helped my squat? No, don't know. I definitely added centimeters to my quads, and I doubt that anybody can argue the opposite, that it didn't help my squat. So take that for what it is. Thoughts on a beginner starting on high bar for a year or two before low bar? When somebody comes into the gym and they are a novice, they're a proper beginner, they don't know how to squat at all, low bar is going to be hard to master. You're going to have to pick a quote-unquote easier or aggressive version of a squat that they can do, build up strength through that, build up strength in good positions, build up good tendencies, build up good sensory awareness, get them to be able to control their hips in space, be able to control their rib cage in space, be able to control their spine, be able to know what that feels like, and then transfer those skills over to a low bar squat for competition. However, if this person doesn't have all those things ticked off and they still want to compete in powerlifting, obviously strength is specific, and we're going to have to practice low bar, if that's what they're going to do in competition, to a 1RM or close to a 1RM strength in training, and you're just going to have to go hard on that and try and use all your best technique, cueing and advice and blah, 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 to try and drive the best results for them short term for that comp. But for it to very generally answer your question without a specific circumstance, beginners pretty much should stay away from low bar. I would say anybody who's not a powerlifter, who doesn't have aspirations of competing, should probably just stay away from low bar. Other squats are easier to achieve a good position, are easier to achieve the outcome that is desired for most people, the intent. And I would rather put people in a position, in an exercise where they're more likely to have a successful outcome from that. So if their aim is to just get bigger, their aim is to just get healthier, their aim is to just get generally strong and not compete, well, I'm probably not going to choose low bar. So there's a kind of side answer to that. For squat, what are the top 3 accessories? Oh, I love these questions because there's like this mystical like top 3. I don't know, man. Completely depends on the person, completely depends on everything. If I looked at my training, like I said, right now it's going to be like a more vertical, heel elevated, high bar front type squat variation for my hypertrophy, as that's my intent for that session. If somebody had the problem of they couldn't hit depth at all, then something like that's going to be great to drive those inhalation mechanics and allow them to hit depth. So they're going to have things like plantar flexion, a little bit of a tuck, that counter-nutation at the sacrum, that ability to drive air backwards in the upper thorax. Things like that are going to allow them to squat to depth, and that might be their method for increasing options down the line. But so something like a goblet squat or a counterbalance squat or a front squat or a safety, whatever it is, that's going to be the accessories for them. So somebody who is competing in powerlifting and is really close to comp and needs specific movements that are going to have the most transference to their 1RM, really close movements. So they might do pause squats as their stuff to help them, because it's going to have really close transference to their 1RM. So I mean, as you can see where I'm going with this, there isn't a top 3. The accessories and the supplementary exercises, whatever you want to call it, the variations are going to be very dependent on the specific circumstance and the issues, or what, if you want to call them issues, like the whatever things that the particular person needs to do to improve their squat, both biomechanically and in terms of goals and how far they're out from competition, things like that. Yeah. For me, that high upward squat, pause squats are usually a staple. As far as hypertrophy goes, machines, hack squats, leg press, leg extensions are going to be my go-tos. If I only had time for 3, what would they be? Yeah, I would just squat more. Like, honestly, most people probably just need to squat more. And what are the rep sets for the day? It depends on the circumstance. You said 7 weeks out. I mean, at 7 weeks out, you're like, you have to be pretty specific. Your accessories need to have transference to your goal, which is going to be able to squat the most at competition. So you're going to want to do things like tempo squats, things like pause squats, things that are very, very close to a 1RM low bar competition squat. Most of your volume is actually going to be on squatting. So, I mean, like, maybe the answer to that is just more squatting. And my accessories at that point aren't going to be based on hypertrophy, aren't going to be based on improving technique. Because at 7 weeks out, I mean, fuck, man, you don't have much time. So I would be using accessories just to keep healthy to some degree, keep things from helping to some degree, just keep your body moving in some aspect as best you can. So usually the bulk of my squat sessions at 7 weeks out are going to be squatting. And then there's going to be 2, maybe 3 accessory exercises, whatever, that are just based around just me keeping on moving well and me keeping my hips and my back and whatever the fuck it is feeling good, so that I can keep squatting, so that I can keep progressing week to week. That's going to be my aim at that point. It's just getting through the sessions and building upon that week to week, and whatever allows me to do that, that's what I'm going for. I know that's not a direct answer to that question, but as all these are, then it rarely is like that. What percentage would you go to from sleeves to wraps? Usually when I program, I estimate 10% more for wraps. Now, obviously, everyone's a little bit different. People get more out of wraps or less out of wraps, depending on many different things, including just skill, the ability to use wraps well. But I usually just estimate 10, and it's about right, 10%. So if somebody can squat 200 in sleeves, they can squat 220 in wraps. That's just my rough estimate. But most of my programming these days is auto-regulated, as in like using RP, RIR, so I don't end up setting a whole lot of percentages. But say like I set a set of 5 at an 8, 2 reps from failure, and which would be a 7 RM, and then they come back to me and they hit 70%, and I'm like 75% for a 7 RM, 5 at an 8. It's in the ballpark. If it was 20%, if they come back and they've hit 50%, I'm going to be like, oh, what the fuck? If they come back and they've hit 90%, I'm going to be like, oh, fuck. I mean, that's fucking awesome, but oh, geez, what's happening? But I'm just using the percentages as a rough guide. At the end of the day, the proximity to failure is going to be the stimulus that drives them forward, and not only the stimulus that drives them forward, but they're going to auto-regulate on recovery and technique, hopefully, if they're good and stuff like that as well. So heaps of things. How to structure my off-season training. Based on goals. Fuck, man. I'm always training 4 or 5 times a week, 4 or 5 days a week. At the moment, the layout is more specific, less of an intent, less of a focus on hypertrophy as for warriors. If warriors goes ahead, I need to be 115 kilos on a 2-hour weigh-in for that. At the moment, I am 116-ish in the morning, which if I just go full blast, fucking gain as much muscle as I can, it means that making weight's going to be tough and I might need to cut, and I don't want to do that on 2-hour weigh-in, so I am hitting less hypertrophy, still hitting some, but less towards gaining more mass and more based on like skill components or neuromuscular stuff, and I'm driving that. So I mean, how I structure it's going to be towards intent. If somebody's main limiter is their fact that they need to gain more muscle mass, which is a lot of powerlifters, then I'm going to structure it almost like a bodybuilder and go and almost do like I wouldn't say like a body part split, but it's still going to be full body for the most part, and there's still going to be some of an intent on power exercises, on squatting, benching, and deadlifting better. But more of their overall workload throughout a week is going to be exercises which drive hypertrophy. What is my favorite knee wrap? I've used the Pioneer Lily Bridge wraps for the last, I don't even know, like 2-3 years, whatever they came out. And I like them because, first of all, they're a good wrap, they do a good job. I feel like most wraps do. They're elastic. They're a big fucking elastic band. But I like knees that are skin friendly because I like my knees skin to remain attached to my leg, and therefore I choose wraps that are like that. So the Lily Bridges are somewhat comfortable. And yeah, call me a pussy or whatever, fuck you guys. I like it. Oh, can't drink coffee either, apparently. Fuck. Yeah, but I wouldn't get caught up in the rabbit hole of like this rap's gonna be so much better than that rap or whatever. Just pick one that's comfortable for you, that allows you to get the workload in. Get somebody who can wrap you well, or learn to wrap yourself well tight, and practice it. I don't think I've seen people squat world records in lots of different types of wraps, so don't get caught up in this one's better, that one's worse, and trying to find the perfect wrap. That's energy you could be spending towards making your squat better, or doing more work to make your squat better, whatever. Do you work up to a heavy single, triple, or something each heavy squat day, then drop the weight back and hit volume from there? Not at the moment. At the moment, they're more straight sets. So say like the squat session I did yesterday was 4 8s. In the variation that I was doing at a 6-7 RPE for the first 2 and a 7-8 RPE for the second 2 sets. So more of your typical straight sets. Still a little bit of a ramping weight to it, but more straight sets during a comp prep where obviously there's more more focus on like a hitting heavy and performing really well at that one set. I like having the top sets because they mentally allow me to go into the gym and go like, all right, I'm going to hit a fucking heavy triple tonight. I'm going to do it. And just like all my mind's on that. And whether I have a set number or whether I have an RPE, whatever, like my mind is 100% focused on that. And then my back off work after is like, it's lighter, even though the back off work's usually a bit even harder. But I don't know, it just allows me mental clarity just to go like, boom, I'm going to fucking nail this top set. Love that mentality to it. And also we use the top set to drive. So I auto-regulate the top set. So say I do a 3 at an 8, whatever, and then that drives, that gives me an estimated 1RM for the day. And then I use percentages based off that estimated 1RM. So that allows me to like auto-regulate the back off work too. And so everything is auto-regulated and based off today's estimated 1RM based off my top set. So I'm not just having percentages based off a squat that I hit 6 months ago or whatever. So yeah, during a prep, I'll usually hit a top set. I could do that during now. The top set method versus straight set method versus whatever. I don't think there's one that's like, this is definitely better. It's just situational. Like I said, when I'm working and I'm trying to hit top sets, when I'm trying to hit big numbers and whatnot, during a prep, I'm going to use that method more. During an off season where it's just like 4, 5, 8s, it's going to be more of a, either a ramping like 6, 7, 8, 8 type layout as far as RPEs go, or just like straight sets of a number or whatever. It's just mentally a bit easier, but both methods could definitely work to a degree. So I like Mike Teixeira's fatigue sets for volume. Yeah, I love Mike Teixeira. We use a similar, we use a similar structure, I guess. I use a similar structure when programming, as in like an emerging strategies type structure where it's like, set your microcycle and build upon that and not change variables too much, because I think it's a better method for measuring, monitoring outcomes and then being able to manipulate those outcomes. So change less variables means that you can see if things are working better or not. I don't program near exactly the same as him because I don't know, there are some differences in things that I like when it comes to just movement variations and the amount of accessories that I do and different stuff like that. So yeah, I use different structure in some parts, but I do use and like the not changing something so much and building a microcycle and building off that and having deloads when necessary, having an exact set structure type model. All right, I was planning on going through some other stuff, but there were a lot of good questions. We nailed them, and I've been on a fair bit. And if we're going any longer, people aren't going to watch it. So I'm going to wrap it up here.